If they have a good attention span, they become psychiatrists. They can concentrate on the psychiatry patient. Same. If they're hardworking, not so much. They go all the way. If they're afraid of light, they go into radiology. If they're afraid of the dark, they think big, go dermatology, big organ. Think small, ophthalmology. If they're hardworking, yes, very. Look at the attitude. If they're mean, they go into surgery. If it doesn't matter, the patient's dead, they go into pathology. If the patient's asleep, they go into anesthesiology. Okay? Look, if they're nice, if they hate children, they become general practitioners. If they hate adults, they become pediatricians. It's simple. This is just a joke, okay? That's a good question. That's probably here. It's either here, and we're becoming here as well, me, you see? So, half a vision. Half a vision is you're seeing something, but you're only seeing half of it. So what do you see here? See, this is a picture I took from a flight, but if you looked at it this way, half a vision doesn't tell you anything. It really misleads you. You probably think, okay, you don't know what this is even. It can go with anything. But when you open this, you start seeing a bigger picture, that this is on a flight and so forth. So half the truth, this is a letter that was sent to Oxford University Press, the Oxford Dictionary, talking about their definition of half the truth. And here's what they said. The Oxford English Dictionary is at present undergoing a thorough revision which will include careful reconsideration of the definitions of difficult words such as lie and half-truth. So somebody was complaining to them. You can't define half a vision. You can't define what a lie is. Those are very, very subjective. You can't define them. You can say what a tree is and define it in the dictionary because everybody knows what a tree is. But what's a lie? What's half a vision? So they were revising it. You need to develop a way of comprehensive vision. And this creates a way of balancing your ideas. So you look at things not through one side, not from your own group, your own belief, your own people. You have to look at others as well and see how they look at things. They might look at them very differently than yours, and they might be right. Just because, okay, we're Muslims, we're Arabs, everything we do is fine, doesn't work. Same thing applies to the US. The US learned it the hard way, for example. They thought they can go to 10 wars at a time. As soon as they hit the second war in Iraq, having another war in Afghanistan, they found that we don't have the means of going through a third war and so forth. A comprehensive vision will be able to show the bad, the good, the positive, the negatives. You'll be able to show yourselves that. And this should be your task with everything you do. You have to look at all the possibilities in this. Now, with half a vision, there might come, or you might live in a situation, and we've been living in that, for example, where the vision is created for you to see. Somebody creates the vision, and it started with the Fatimid dynasty in Egypt, where there were three, there was the caliphate, that's the highest, then there was the supreme judge, that was the second highest, and then the third highest was the head of media, head of propaganda. It's called in Arabic, da'i du'at. He's the one that draws the image of everything to the people. So they make the festivals, they make things look nice, everything at the time where things are not nice. So this is what is called propaganda. So half a vision also can lead to propaganda. They don't show you what's going on. They only show you half of what's going on. And once you do that, you can take your country to war against all other countries, telling them that we are going to win. At the time you're losing, and nobody challenges that. You can take the whole world and tell them, I have the way out of economic misery, and this is the end of time, and communism comes after capitalism, and so forth. It went on for 75 years. A lot of people were subdued. A lot of people were killed. Wars because of this. This happened on the day of the Iraqi war, the recent Iraqi war. They hijacked Al Jazeera's website and they put this. Somebody in the US did that to stop the news coming out of Al Jazeera of what was going on in Iraq. In fact, not in Afghanistan, in Iraq. This is the This is a novel. This is the picture of the novel. It's called 1984, and it's written by one of the most famous writers in the US, George Orwell. George Orwell wrote two novels that I know of. He talked about tyranny. The first one was called Animal Farm. You should read those two novels. The first one was Animal Farm, of how a society transforms into accepting tyranny. And the second one was 1984, where a society is subdued by Big Brother who knows everything. That's the government. You don't know, the government knows. Don't anybody tell anybody anything. So this is the whole thing about 1984. Closed-mindedness. That's also part of a one-dimension mentality where you don't let anything in because you believe you hold the ultimate truth. A closed mind is also very devastating. Then you live again in that bubble. It's a fictitious mind. You don't see anything as you should see it. Versus an open mind. The Islamic mind, the original Islamic mind, was a very, very open mind. Let me tell you, some people would ask, why was Islam revealed in Al Jazeera Al Arabiya, in the Arabian Peninsula? That's a question. Why in the middle of the desert? In Mecca, it's all mountains around it. The whole idea of the revelation of Islam in Al Jazeera Al Arabiya is because this is not going to be a cult. This is going to be a religion that's going to go outside. So you need people, although they live in such an atmosphere, that are ready to travel. Now think about the media in the ages just before Islam, in the Jahiliyyah. What was the media? It was poetry, basically. What was the poetry? It was called mu'allaqat. Those that win the contest, they win like, what's called, Arabia Has Got Talent or something. So they come and they say a beautiful poem, and then one wins. And the winner gets what? They write it where? And they hang it. That's why it's called the hang. Where do they hang it? Al-Kaaba. Of course, not 18 font. Okay? It's big, so people, when they're rotating around the Kaaba, they see it, and they're reading it. What is it like? So look at those hanged poems. What do they start with? They start with, what was it? Anybody here studied in Arabic? You studied in Arabic, right? So what, now she can't remember. It starts with, yeah, go ahead. Al-wuquf al-atlal, what does that mean? Like you're just standing and looking at the past, right? And then looking at your beloved girl that this person loved, the poet loved. So it is looking at the past. Then what? Then what? Then they start describing the camel or the horse. That's getting ready for the journey. Then they start describing the journey itself. This was the mentality. People loved it. They fought for it day and night. So they look at the past. They describe how beautiful the past was, but their eyes are on the future. So then they describe the vehicle, which is the animal, the camel or the horse, and then they tell you about the journey. We went there, and this is what we saw, and this is how we fought. So that mentality was able to carry Islam to other nations. That's why in about 50 years, they had already reached Sindh and Hind, India, and in 100 years, Andalus was already on its own at that time. It's because of this mentality. Now, what we did was different. In the 80s and 90s, we went there, traveled, but we took with us our own teachings and understandings. So we didn't get to learn from other people's teachings and understandings. We went there, we took it with us, said, we're right, you're wrong. Let me teach you, let me get you to heaven. That doesn't work. You can't get somebody, you can't guarantee anybody to heaven. So we didn't dialogue at all. Sacredness of individuals. اللي هو تقديس الأفراد. Okay? That means your majesty. It's you, your highness, everything. That's okay, but when this becomes, you get everything from that majesty, everything, he becomes the first teacher, the first engineer, the first doctor, the first everything, and we know that. So, and then you go around, and it's all their pictures in the streets, and it's like, you got like 20 pictures next to each other. One is enough, but they put like 20 pictures next to each other. This started in the 50s. in the Arab world and went on until just very, very recently. What does this do? The sanctity of individuals. It does three things. The first thing is that when you develop such an identity, such an image, people will have unrealistic expectations of that person, of that leader. So he becomes to them like a messiah, like somebody who's going to bring miracles. And miracles to do what? To fix what we are living in on earth. So what do? Once this happens, they get into problems because they can't fix it on their own. When they're in problems, what do? Okay, well, this guy is sacred, but they got into problems. So you need to justify. That doesn't make sense. So what you end up doing is you make an excuse for them. And then so after this happens, when you make an excuse for them and they become no longer liable to the rule of law, that's when we go into tyranny. There's no criticism and no progress. And we went into this, as I said, for 50 years. I'm from the age of fear, where we are always afraid to say anything. You guys are not, you don't fear anything, your thing. I notice it how I used to talk to my teachers, how you talk to us now. And it's very, very different. But that's fine. Keep it this way. Don't go back to what we were. This leads to national disasters. Just before the revolution, Egypt was getting a disaster probably every 3 months. Like something will sink, a train will collide, something will fall. And there's nobody accountable because that head of the state is unquestionable. So this leads to disaster. The only solution to this, I just changed the slide today. I had different things, is monitoring, is building monitoring bodies to monitor that whoever, king, ruler, president, whoever. And this is what I tweeted the other day with the Egyptian elections going on. I said only it's like hashtag, only in Egypt, you go vote and you come back to Tahrir Square to continue defending your rights. It only happens there. So the next, rule of the masses. This is the final one in getting this illusion. So now everything is conspiracy. It's a one-dimension mentality. It is the sacredness of that ruler. But now there is something else going on, which is the surrendering to the masses. Now those masses are the masses who obey the ruler. So even if there are intellects trying to get those masses out of this, those masses have an effect. It's a huge effect. It's difficult to get out of. And here is where leadership emerges. Do you know the difference between a front runner and a leader? You've probably watched the Olympics where they go run for the like 10,000 meters, right? Like Saïd Aoueta. Anybody know Saïd Aoueta? Nawal Mutawakkil? You know them, okay? So they run for 10,000 meters. How do they do that? If you notice them, as they're running, there are 2 or 3 people running ahead of them. They're just like making them, giving them incentive to run. But then before the race ends, they go out, and then you get Mutawakkil or whoever that leader is. And then they run till the end. Those ones that went out are called front runners. They are not leaders. Sometimes somebody finds themselves as in the leadership position as a front runner, not as a leader. So those are important. What's the difference between a front runner and a leader? The leader is one that can go back to the community, to the society, and say, no, we're not going to do this because this is not right. Okay, where everybody is asking. This is different than tyranny. Okay, that means he always listens to the people, but at certain times, and I'll give you an example, at certain times, somebody must step up as a leader. When Khalid ibn al-Walid was fighting in one of the ghazwas, there were 3 leaders before him. They were fighting the Romans. The first, second, and third leader were killed by the Romans. And now he's left with 3,000 people, fighters with him, and Khalid ibn al-Walid took lead. So what did Khalid decide to do? He looked at it, there's 200,000 people ahead of them. This is not what they had expected. So he decided to call it quits and come back, because otherwise all of them are going to be killed. There's no way they will win. So when he went back, he reached Medina. When he reached Medina, all the people came out and they said, you have vacated your place